There is something in your kitchen right now that has started wars, collapsed empires, and enslaved millions of human beings. You cooked with it this morning. It sits there quietly, in a bottle, in a jar, behind the salt and the pepper, looking completely harmless. And that is exactly what makes it so extraordinary, because this liquid has been the most fought-over substance in human history. More than gold, more than land, more than almost anything else. And the story of how it got from a sun-scorched hillside 5,000 years ago to your kitchen shelf tonight is one of the strangest, darkest, most fascinating journeys in all of human history. It starts not with a factory, not with a scientist. It starts with a starving human being crouching over a fire and accidentally discovering something that would change the course of civilization forever. 200,000 years ago, humans ate like animals. Raw meat, cold bone, whatever the hunt brought in. It kept them alive, barely. Raw food is brutally inefficient. The body burns enormous energy just trying to break it down. Early humans were always hungry, always exhausted, always one bad season away from disappearing completely. Then one night, somewhere in Africa, meat fell into a fire, and fat melted for the first time. That dripping, sizzling, smoking liquid that pooled against the hot stone, no human nose had ever smelled anything like it. No human tongue had ever tasted it. And the moment they did, something ignited inside the human brain that has never gone out. Cooked fat delivered energy unlike anything they had ever consumed. Dense, immediate, powerful. Scientists today believe this single discovery, fat meeting fire, accelerated human brain development faster than almost any other event in our evolutionary history. We didn't just cook food that night. Fire made us human. But here was the problem. You couldn't carry fire. You couldn't store it. You couldn't trade it. And fat from hunted animals meant you needed a successful hunt first, which meant you were always one bad week away from nothing. For thousands of years, humanity was powerful and fragile at the same time, the most intelligent creatures on Earth, completely dependent on luck. What they needed was a source of fat that didn't run away, something rooted in the ground, something that could be pressed, stored, and carried across deserts and oceans. They needed oil, and the answer was growing right in front of them, in the most stubborn, ancient, unkillable tree on Earth. 6,000 years ago, on the rocky hillsides of the Mediterranean, someone picked an olive and pressed it between two stones. Oil ran out. That moment, so simple it almost seems accidental, launched one of the longest-running empires of human history. Not an empire of kings and armies, an empire of a single liquid. The olive tree grows where almost nothing else will. Thin soil, scorching heat, almost no water. It produces fruit for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. There are olive trees alive in Greece today that were producing oil when Julius Caesar was still a child. And the liquid they produce was unlike anything humans had ever extracted from a plant. It didn't just cook food, it preserved it. Meat stored in olive oil lasted weeks, fish lasted months. In a world with no refrigeration, no canning, no way to stop food from rotting, this was not a convenience, this was survival. The Greeks understood immediately what they had, but what happened next, nobody planned. Oil became money. Not like money, actual money. Greek city-states paid soldiers in oil. Taxes were collected in oil. A man's wealth was counted not in coins, but in sealed clay jars stacked in his storehouse. The man with the deepest cellar was the most powerful man in the room. And then, Greece fell to Rome. And Rome didn't just adopt olive oil, it became addicted to it. At its peak, the city of Rome consumed an almost unimaginable amount. Historians estimate 30 million liters flowing into the capital every single year. It cooked the food, it lit the lamps, it supplied the bathhouses where Romans spent hours every day. The Roman government understood something brutally practical. A city with clean skin, lit streets, and cooked food stays calm. A city without oil descends into disease and revolt. Oil wasn't luxury, it was infrastructure. So Rome did what Rome always did with things it needed. It took them. Roman legions spread into Spain, North Africa, the Middle East, and everywhere they went, the demand followed. Local farmers who had grown grain for generations were ordered to rip out their crops and plant olive trees. Trees that wouldn't produce a single fruit for 7 years. 7 years of working land that gave nothing, feeding families on debt and faith, supplying a city 1,000 miles away that would never know their names. Entire civilizations restructured themselves around one liquid, one pressing, one Roman appetite that never stopped growing. But here was the crack in Rome's foundation, and nobody saw it coming. Olive trees only grow in certain soils, certain climates, certain latitudes. You cannot grow them in jungles. You cannot grow them in tropical heat. You cannot grow them in the vast territories that lay beyond Rome's reach. And as the world kept expanding, as ships pushed further, as new continents revealed themselves, civilization kept needing more oil than the Mediterranean could ever produce. The search for a new source was about to take humanity somewhere much darker. In the jungles of West Africa, a different tree had been growing for thousands of years: the oil palm. Rough, aggressive, almost violent in the way it grows, enormous clusters of bright orange fruit bursting from its trunk. West African communities had lived alongside this tree for generations. They pressed its fruit into a deep red oil, dense, rich, extraordinary, and used it for cooking, medicine, ceremony, trade. This was not just an ingredient, it was inheritance, knowledge passed from mother to daughter across centuries. Which fruit to pick, how long to boil, how to read the color as the oil rose slowly to the surface. Patient work, intimate work, the kind that carries memory in its hands. Then, in the 1400s, European ships appeared on the coast. The Portuguese came first, then the Dutch, then the British. They looked at the oil palm and saw exactly what Rome had seen in the olive grove. Not a tree, a resource. Not a tradition, a supply chain. Not a people's inheritance, a product. And what followed was not trade. It was the beginning of something so dark, so systematic, so devastating that its consequences are still felt today, in ways most people never connect back to a bottle of oil. Because the Europeans didn't just want to buy palm oil. They wanted the land. They wanted the labor. They wanted complete, total control over every step of production, from the tree to the ship to the market. And to get that control, they decided they didn't need to pay for any of it. The year is 1500. European ships are docking on the West African coast with something that has never existed before in human history: a completely organized, industrially scaled system for taking everything a land produces and sending it somewhere else. West African palm oil had been a local economy for thousands of years. Communities harvested what they needed, traded what was surplus. The land was never stripped. The tree was never pushed beyond what it could give. That balance ended the moment European merchants saw the numbers. Palm oil was extraordinary, not just for cooking, but for everything. It was thick, stable, and almost miraculous in the way it behaved under heat. European industries immediately found uses nobody in West Africa had imagined. Palm oil greased the axles of factory machines. It manufactured candles that lit entire cities. It was pressed into soap, sold across Europe as a luxury product. The demand exploded. And demand, when it is powerful enough, stops asking permission. Here is the fact that rarely gets said out loud. Before palm oil was a cooking ingredient, it was industrial lubricant. The factories roaring across England during the Industrial Revolution, the ones that built the modern world, ran on palm oil harvested in West Africa by people who received nothing in return. 12 million human beings were taken from Africa during the slave trade, many from the exact regions where oil palms grew. People who had spent generations learning those trees, understanding the soil, reading the fruit, knowing the harvest, were chained, shipped across the Atlantic, and forced to work land that was never theirs, for people who would never know their names. And here is the detail that stays with you long after the history books close. That knowledge, the intimate, generational understanding of oil, of harvest, of pressing, traveled with them across the ocean. On plantations in the Caribbean and Americas, enslaved people used that same knowledge to produce oil for an empire that considered them property. The men who owned the ships became extraordinarily wealthy. Their children inherited that wealth. Some of their names are still on university buildings, hospital wings, and city streets today. The people who actually knew the trees got nothing, not even their names in the record. Slavery ended, but the logic behind it never did. In the early 1900s, European colonial powers looked at Southeast Asia the way they had once looked at West Africa: vast land, perfect climate, and people with less military power than their ambitions required. The oil palm was transplanted from its West African home into the rainforests of Malaysia and Indonesia. What happened to those rainforests is almost impossible to picture. Forests that had stood for millions of years, home to orangutans, tigers, thousands of species that existed nowhere else on Earth, were cleared in months. Not years, months. Flattened, burned, replaced with palm plantations stretching as far as the eye could reach. Indigenous communities who had lived inside those forests for generations, who knew every tree and every animal and every seasonal shift, were pushed out without negotiation, without compensation, without a second thought. The land produced, the profit left, the people stayed behind with nothing. By the mid-1900s, palm oil was flowing out of Southeast Asia at a scale that dwarfed anything West Africa had ever produced. It was cheap because the land had been taken at almost no cost. It was stable because of its unique chemical structure. It was everywhere because the corporations buying it never had to look the people who produced it in the eye. But the biggest transformation was still coming, and it started, of all places, in an American laboratory. The year is 1970. American scientists are making an announcement. Animal fats, butter, lard, the fats humans had cooked with for thousands of years, are dangerous. They clog arteries, they cause heart disease. The country needs an alternative immediately. The food industry was ready. They had been watching palm oil for years, and now, under the cover of a health crisis, they moved fast. Palm oil, already cheap, already stable, already available in industrial quantities, was poured into the American food supply at a scale nobody publicly announced. The genius, from a corporate perspective, was invisibility. Palm oil was flavorless, odorless, completely undetectable in a finished product. You cannot taste it in a cracker. You cannot smell it in a cookie. You cannot feel it in the chocolate coating of a candy bar. It simply makes processed food last longer, feel smoother, and travel further without spoiling. By the 1990s, palm oil was inside approximately half of all packaged products on American supermarket shelves. Cookies, crackers, instant noodles, margarine, baby formula, lipstick, shampoo, soap. Half of everything. And on most labels, it hid behind 30 different names: vegetable oil, palmitate, sodium lauryl sulfate, glyceryl stearate. Names designed by people who understood that consumers who knew what they were eating might make different choices. The most consumed oil in human history had become the most invisible. This morning, you reached for a bottle without thinking. That's the whole story right there. 6,000 years of pressed olives, Roman conquest, stolen land, broken forests, and corporate boardrooms. All of it engineered so that the last step would feel completely effortless, completely normal. completely yours. The bottle is cheap because somewhere, something, or someone paid the real price. Every civilization in history ran on oil, and every civilization in history found a way to take it from people who had less power. The names changed, the oceans changed, the labels changed. The move never did. There is a line that runs unbroken from the first fire in Africa to Roman soldiers in olive groves to chains on a shave ship to a rainforest falling in a single season to an ingredient hiding behind a name you cannot pronounce on a label you never read. That line ends in your kitchen, right next to the salt.